Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Azaan. Azaan, firstly, I'm happy we're finally doing this. We've been, I think, coordinating this for a while. There were dates that went off on my side, then stuff on your side. I think we finally managed to do this, and I'm super excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Varun. Excited to learn from you, to have an interesting conversation and explore the creator space in India.
Before we kind of kick off, I'd love for you to kind of give our listeners and viewers perspective on your journey to kind of setting up the hub, uh, and also like what all you guys do, because you guys do a lot of things there. So just give a bit of a broad landscape there, and then we'll dig into each of them.
Yeah. So it's always interesting because a lot of people who know us in the last 2 3 years, they think that we're a media company or an agency, or a lot of people think we're an influencer management company. But we started about 6 years ago in co-living.
Hmm.
So we've always been a community company, right? We've built a community. For the first 4 years, we did it offline. This is
Hmm.
pre-pandemic. We had co-living, co-working, event spaces, and we just loved bringing people together offline, creating a safe space, creating opportunities for interaction,
Hmm.
collaboration, bringing artists in, musicians, and that's what we really enjoyed doing. The pandemic kind of forced us to reimagine what community might mean like in a virtual world or in a hybrid environment. And
Hmm.
that's what kind of blessing and curse brought us to the path where we are today, which is we have that offline business, which is truly like our core differentiator. But we have this amazing online kind of community and this creator network
Hmm.
through which we're able to work with brands and creators from across the country. So it's kind of really like opened up our horizons.
Hmm.
And we're kind of like in the middle of all of these interesting opportunities. And I think it's early days for us as a brand. And we could go a little bit more offline, a little bit more online, but we're enjoying every day and we're seizing every opportunity that comes our way.
So if you look at the time you kind of move this into these directions. And if you look at the broad landscape of the creator economy, and I know we talk a lot about the creator economy, but I feel that we don't talk about it from the broader sense of even India as it is, right? A lot of the conversation on the creator economy or even the influencer space become very like Bombay centered, very north centered. But there's so much happening down south as well. So what have you kind of seen, or what did you kind of learn as the creator focus kind of scaled up for you guys, saying, okay, I didn't expect this to be, you know this way, or these kind of creators to be around, or was that already like something which you kind of knew and wanted to just tap into?
Yeah, I think this is a great point to kind of reference the concept of entrepreneurs trying to become creators
Hmm.
and creators trying to become entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Grass is always greener. As a creator, you have distribution, and as an entrepreneur, you have a product.
Hmm.
And a creator needs to do something with that distribution to monetize, and an entrepreneur wants to leverage that distribution to monetize, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think we're super blessed to be in Bangalore, whereas a lot of the attention goes towards the north, it goes towards Bombay, Delhi, and creators in different parts of India. But this gives us a kind of an interesting space where Bangalore is a very startup minded
Hmm.
entrepreneurial city. So the speed at which a lot of things are happening here is very exciting to watch entrepreneurs collaborate with creators, because they both very very clearly get what they need from each other. And I
Yeah.
think us being in that ecosystem enabling those collaborations, it's a great learning opportunity for someone who's trying to build a business in this space.
And as you're kind of doing that, what are you seeing? Especially, there's been a bit of a boom, right? There's a lot of scale that online creators have gotten over the last couple of years. Primarily, I wouldn't say primarily, I would say largely because of the pandemic, because it gave them the opportunity to really find an audience who was online more for more time than they were before,
Mhm.
and really scale out. What have you been seeing in the creative space? The more you work with them and kind of build that community, say, okay, this is super exciting. This is where the future is kind of going. These are like where we find the space right now. What are those pieces?
I think, again, for us, I like to speak for my truth, which is
Mm.
we're a super small community in Bangalore, right?
Mm.
uh, And the most important trend I'm seeing over the last 60 days is creators want to actually connect with their communities offline,
Hmm.
because it's a very good measure for who's going to bat for them, right?
Yeah.
Even if you have 100,000 followers on Instagram, it's difficult for some of these creators to pull 100 people together
True.
offline.
True.
And if we but they need it, they want it, because it's great from a learning perspective, from an understanding perspective, from a content generation perspective, right? The kind of
Hmm.
content you get at an offline event can really help grow your online community.
So true.
um so I think, even though this may be a non-scalable tactic, I
Hmm.
think that it's a very interesting space to kind of double down on and try and assist creators, not just in Bangalore. We've had creators that have come down here from Dubai, Egypt, different parts of India, and say, hey, we saw you did a creator meetup with Manish Bhai or with somebody else, and we
Yeah.
want to do a creator meetup. We want to see. We're just curious to see. We don't know if it's going to work or not. That's the first thing they tell us. But I think that space, that niche space, is very interesting for us.
I love the fact that you said that it's a tight knit community, right? Because that's what you often get wrong. You often get. I feel that people always consider the fact that you need to have not only hundred thousands, like millions of followers to really hit scale, but if you get a captive thousand, couple of thousand people who kind of will kind of come in, like you said, who will come in for like I remember I did a book reading sometime back in Ahmedabad, and there were 80 people there, and I couldn't like it blew my mind the fact that 80 people landed up there in
Right.
Ahmedabad, which I didn't even know I had an audience in. And the more you look at the data, you realize there are people who are deeply engaged who you need to kind of figure out, okay, these are the cities, kind of go engage with them, and then let's see what you can do for them and with them in that sense of the word. And that's
Yeah.
where I guess physical spaces like yours really come in, because you're facilitating that physical, okay, let's meet over here, let's figure things you can do. So apart from the standard meetup scenarios, what are you seeing that is really engaging what's primarily a digital audience in a physical space?
I think there's so many kind of, like, I wouldn't call them trends yet, but they could be trends, right? That we're
Mm,
seeing these early kind of signs. We had a call with NAS's team just last week, and they're
mm,
rolling out a new community management tool called nas.io. They're
mm,
going all into it. They're trying to find creators as well as communities and say, this is how we're going to help you build a better way to manage a digital community. Um,
mm,
but I think it's still such early days, because yeah, Discord allows you to do that. Some people are doing it on Telegram. There's this interesting startup that we're talking to, they're called Riggy. They enable better Telegram and WhatsApp community running. But I think a lot of the really difficult problems, they're difficult because they're not scalable, right? Because when
mm,
you talk about a community, when you talk about managing and building a community, for it, a community kind of has to be of a certain size for it to have enough cross pollination within it, so that the person moderating the community is just has to moderate, not actually contribute to drive the value in the community. But as the community grows, the best part about the community, which is the intimacy and that connection, it's very hard to use technology to solve that, because
mm.
the human element is what truly drives from a 0 to 10,000, right?
Yeah.
But after a point, like, what do you do? Because you need to grow, but then tech kind of also just kills the vibe. So that I'm so excited to see. Like, I love talking to all the different people building solutions to kind of understand what are the different ways we're going to approach this, because someone is going to crack it. We have to, right?
Yeah. That's actually so true, because I mean, the more I'm seeing this, and it's been this weird journey, right? You talk pre 2020, and it was still like, okay, you build an online audience, but you were living in an offline world. So offline was prime. How you would term, let's say, celebrity, how you would term even like I don't even remember the word personal brand from that time. I feel that kind of came in somewhere in the pandemic. I don't, or maybe I've lost my memory, but I don't remember the term at all. Now, suddenly cut to today, where you've gone from that to pure digital because you didn't have a choice, to now saying, okay, I'm going back into the physical world over the last, let's say, 8 months to a year. But while doing that, what also has happened is that the way you engage has changed. You don't engage the same way you would, let's say, pre 2020. Like, I know I don't. And that's maybe changed what an audience expects from a creator, what a creator expects from them. And somewhere in between, a brand has to figure out, okay, what do I do in the middle of all of this? Which I think is I mean, that's the one category I think about the most, because I'm like, these guys still can figure things out between themselves. How does a brand fit into all of this?
No, it's definitely a very big challenge for a lot of these brands to figure out, right? Whether you're a startup or a really big multinational company, I think I look at it as an interesting challenge to solve, because the way marketing is being done and advertising is being done, advertising is dead.
Yeah.
It's completely mid massive disruption.
Mm.
I look at it as a very positive thing, because I think if this didn't happen, the space would have become just another, like, a boring space. But the
Hmm.
disruption is bringing so much creative attention to it that these solutions are constantly interesting minds want to come and work on these challenging problems, right? It's
Yeah.
not just you make an ad and you put it out, right? So I think the innovation will it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
And I want to take a slight detour from this and say that as I run through I ran through your LinkedIn because that's what you do before you get guests on. There's a lot of stuff that you do, right? So I want to kind of do a bit of a flashback. I also realized we're from the same school in Bangalore, is what I
Yes,
realized, that
Bishop
we were both
Cotton's.
from Bishop Cotton's in Bangalore. And I happened to spot that. I'm like, what has your journey been like to bring you to this point? And I'd love to kind of hear that, because you're not just doing one thing, you're doing many things. And I'd love for you to kind of touch upon all of them.
Yeah, so I'll do a small plug here.
Mm,
3 months ago, I decided it's time I share my story from my
mm,
perspective. So I
mm.
actually started a newsletter. It's called Repurpose. It's on LinkedIn only,
Yeah.
and the tagline is stories from the life of a hyperactive founder. And I think that would pretty much describe what you see on my LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think I've been super lucky, super blessed, because I've had a lot of support from my family. I've had the opportunity to build a phenomenal team, which
Mm,
allows me to try and follow an unconventional path as an entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs are given the advice that don't get distracted, don't try to do too many things, you won't be able to scale anything,
mm,
focus on one thing, right? And I get it, that's probably great advice, but that's not the advice that I've lived my life with. I've always tried to approach my entrepreneurial journey in a way that's closest to my personality. And my personality, I didn't want to suppress that to follow traditional advice, right? My
mm,
personality is I'm a little excited, I want to try new things, I want to dabble. And I felt like if I don't build my business journey through that, at some point I may lose interest in what I'm doing, and that would
mm.
be the biggest threat to um, towards the long term success of potentially what my
I
career
relate
could
with
be.
you a lot because I'm similar and I call myself an entu cutlet. But the way you defined it seems a lot better than me just saying, no, I'm just an entu cutlet. This is why I do too many things, is how I normally
I
define
think
it.
internet culture would prefer your definition. But yeah, I think for all the things that maybe I have been able to do, I still look at myself as completely clueless. And I may have, like, with my different businesses, we have one foot in the door in a couple of sectors.
Mhm.
But I think in terms of figuring out where to double down, where to scale, there's still so much that I'm excited about because of the unknown, because I don't know what I may end up doing even 2 years from now, right? Which one kind of clicks and gets all my attention and all the time and energy.
Mm,
um, but I think from a philosophy perspective, what we've tried to do is we've tried to build a creative team. We have a team of 25 amazing creators. We call them creators because some are graphic designers, some are video editors, some are content strategists, um, and copywriters, and all these amazing minds. And the belief is, let's build the team first, and let's use that team to kind of be really great at just one thing, that's
mm,
storytelling.
yeah.
And whatever these businesses are, we can leverage storytelling to grow them. Something as different as, where in this property right now we have two banquet spaces
Mm,
that's targeting a very different demographic from the co-living space, the co-working space, and our agency clients.
yeah.
But the same team works on all those businesses because we treat our businesses as clients of our agency.
So how do you break that down? So then that brings me to an interesting point, right? If we have the same set of people working on all of them, but they are in a sense different things, um, how do you kind of assemble this team together, or rather, how do you kind of say, okay, how does that flow not just for you, but like for the team as well.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing I can say that we're proud of, and I'm confident of like saying we got this figured out, it's the culture part of it, right?
Hmm.
We attract the best people. Sometimes I really like, I pinch myself and I'm like, how are these people part of our team? They should be
Yeah.
doing something greater. And we've built this entire thing on Instagram. So the last
Hmm.
4 years, especially the last 2 years, right? You look at our Instagram, and this is often an internal challenge. It's like we're not sending the right message, because everyone who comes to our Instagram says, how can I join your team? Not, I want to be your customer, right? So so for some reason, we're super lucky. We've been able to create a vibe, an environment, or where we encourage people to be the best version of themselves, to be great storytellers, and to build their personal brands while
Hmm.
they're working with us. That allows us to attract the right talent, and then what we ask for them in return is just spread your talent across a couple of projects that we're working on, and we keep trying and changing them up so they have freshness and variety, and they get to build their portfolio in terms of,
Hmm.
I've worked on all these diverse sets of problems.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact, I mean, I want to touch upon the brand one again a little bit and go a little deeper onto that. Is that what have you seen have been ways in which you've been able to really kind of work with brands and kind of bring all these elements together to kind of function for them better? If there are any examples you can kind of pick out, anything which you guys have done which you think will kind of get also people to understand how, because I love the model of bringing all these things together and treating them as
Mhm.
different clients. um, but on the brand side, how do you kind of look at that aspect?
So we've started working with brands pretty much from day one, about 6 years
Mm.
ago, when we started building the co-living space,
Yeah.
because we realized we had a member base of 200 members, right? We
Mm.
have people who live and work in our two properties. That got amplified when we started doing events. We started building a database of like tens of thousands of people that have attended the 500 plus events we've hosted in our spaces. So now we have this captive database of 200 in the property, about 10-20,000 within a 5 kilometer radius of us, who likes to come occasionally for events.
Mm. Mm.
um with that, brands started approaching us even before we were an agency, saying, can we tap into that? Can
Mm.
you do a brand activation? We've done this for brands, a lot of beer startups, right? We had a lot of
Mm.
microbreweries popping up. We've worked
Yeah.
with brands like Bumble, where they like create this unique offline experience for us, or where
Mm.
we can beta test, or where we can do a product launch. And that kind of fed into what we're doing today as an agency, which is like, yeah, we're an agency, but that can mean so many different things today, right?
Yeah.
Everyone seems to be having an agency. I have a personal branding agency, I have a LinkedIn agency, I have only Twitter agency.
Yeah.
um and that's something that we keep asking ourselves, because we've only been an agency for about 18 months.
Mm.
What kind of an agency do we want to be? And a couple of areas that we've figured out that, yeah, these are yeses and these are nos. Definitely hybrid experiences combining offline online.
Mm.
But also something that has just kind of emerged is digital PR. So I think that's a very interesting space for us, and we've been able to drive meaningful results, because an ad in an ad in a major newspaper may
Mm.
not be as effective as getting on the right podcast, getting the
Yeah.
founder on the
Yeah.
right podcast, right?
Correct.
And that's why a lot of things that I do, it kind of charts the path for us to potentially maybe introduce our clients and be like, hey, someone's doing something interesting, would you consider maybe having a conversation? And that has been very organic. It's worked for um from both ends, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something we want to dabble in more.
And one of the things you also spoke about was that in your team you have a mixture of people who, let's say, copywriters, you said editors, etc. I feel that's also one aspect of the creator economy which we are seeing coming up, but that's actually the need, right? You have a lot of creators, but every creator also needs people they can work with. If someone might just want to know how to write, but more importantly, people might want to, like, how to find an editor, how to find a photographer, how do I find someone who can be a channel manager? There's that need as well. um, do you see yourself, or are you already in the processing? Okay, these are things you can kind of add on to what you need to do, either if you're an entrepreneur who wants to be a content creator, where I feel the need is max, because most entrepreneurs now want to have that personal brand but
Hmm.
don't have the bandwidth to sit and edit themselves. I'm a clear example of someone who tried and then failed at it till I eventually got myself a team.
Hmm.
And how do you Do you see yourself moving into that space a lot more?
Yeah, I think we're super open.
Hmm.
Like I said, we've been doing all this. We've been playing in the digital space for less than 2 years, right?
Hmm.
It takes people a much longer time to even gain some traction and clarity.
Yeah.
So we're very aware of that. Our philosophy is build in the open and
Yeah.
listen with intent, right? So everything we do, we document. Like if we're doing a podcast right now, before the podcast is out, there's going to be a shout out from the hub page saying we just got on a podcast with Varun. It
Yeah.
was amazing, and if anybody wants to potentially maybe reach or connect to him, just shoot us a DM, and if we think it's interesting, we may try and facilitate a relationship. So we just believe in being super honest, talking about what we're doing, listening to what people need, and if there's a way we can repurpose this amazing team that we've built to kind of cater value to what people need, even if it's not what a conventional agency does, then why not? Because when we don't want to label ourselves as an agency and say this is how an agency works, this is how you're going to be able to work with us. We want to create a new way for people to kind of interact with creators, right?
Yeah. And and I think the other aspect of it is that what I feel at some point we're kind of coming to is, because you're also going in with the community aspect,
Mm.
you will not just see collaborations on one front, but on multiple fronts happening. Do you feel a physical space is more relevant today? And I know we started off with that, especially as we are. I think people are just really like wanting to kind of go back to a physical space more than anything else. Do you see it being more relevant today than ever?
Yeah, hands down. I think there was that revenge travel, revenge spending,
Mm,
revenge going out happening. But I think it's safe to say that that phase is maybe over now. And I was very interested to see whether after all of that spike would it again dip down, because people would be like, yeah, okay, I got going out right now. I'm happy to go back home because it's easier to work from home. It's easier to kind of do everything from home. But surprisingly, after that spike, we saw a plateau. We didn't see a dip,
mm,
and that's very interesting to see because we want to play more in that space, right? I think there are ways to kind of build scalable offline strategies. If you look at what Mr. Beast has done with his whole
yeah.
virtual burger chain and what he's doing offline, I think these kind of trends are capitalizing on the fact that people want to go out, but they want a hybrid experience where they feel connected to an online entity, but they're able to have an offline touch point. And I think that's a
Mm.
space, it's just too exciting for me to kind of work with clients on that space and see what could potentially happen.
I have a ton more questions to ask you, but I know we need to go for a break. So we're going to quickly do that and be right back with Advertising is Dead.
Hello, hello, hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by Jyoti Malhotra. Jyoti is the MD of Volvo Cars India. The two of them that's right, drive around Volvo's electric car, the XC40 Recharge, and talk about why going electric is the future. Do check out the special episode that we are calling Cyrus Drives on the Cyrus Says YouTube channel. On the Life Manifesto, we have a Teacher's Day special episode. Zarina lists 5 factors that are equivalent to a teacher in everyone's life. On the Wired Talks, Siddharth talks to Nandini Jami, who runs Check My Ads. Check My Ads is an ad tech industry watchdog, and the initiative has been put together to curtail the promotion of hateful ads in the digital space. On A Sip of Finance, Priyanka shares how to manage a DMAT account with simple tips. And on Think Fast with Varun and Suchita was on holiday this week and I was able to sub in. We spoke about YouTube's move of testing a podcast tab on its homepage. Once again, I'd like to remind you all, we have some amazing merchandise on the IVM Podcast website. Go to the website, ivmpodcast.com, and you can click the shop button and it will take you to our partners beyond follow. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And please do tell a friend if you're enjoying this show. Word of mouth does help us a lot. Also, wherever you're listening to the show, give us a rating, give us a review. That is always helpful. Also, do remember to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels operating over there. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: HDFC Mutual Fund, TransUnion Sibyl, Volvo XC40 Recharge, Checkpoint Software, and Smallcase. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're still talking to Azaan. I want to actually ask you this, and I'm going to ask you to kind of put on a bit of a lens to say, okay, this is where things are really going. We've spoken about, okay, we were purely physical, and then you were also like largely physical focused. And the digital piece happened, which was forced upon us, and that kind of changed how we function in the world. Now in this weird hybrid space, I have my own perspective on it, but I'd love to hear your perspective saying, where do you see this kind of going? How do you see it evolving? Um, Especially with the multiple areas of focus that you have, as my light has gone off on my uh, on my camera, but that's okay. We'll go with it anyway. But what are you kind of seeing as trends for the future, especially in the creative space and all the spaces that you are focusing on?
Yeah, I think for the offline bit, I think there's this whole shift that's been happening from D2C brands, online brands that are kind of realizing they need an offline footprint, right? And I think post pandemic, there was a very big opportunity for these guys to capitalize because a lot of the traditional brick and mortar were leaving spaces left, right, and center. So a lot of these online D2C brands that were thriving in the pandemic realized that there's a great opportunity to go and jump into offline, whether it's your soul store, it's your lens card. A lot of
Yeah.
smaller brands also were very gutsy and they said, okay, let's go. Let's. There's a great deal available on space. I think the last 12 to 18 months, these guys have realized that, yeah, we got a great deal, we got in, but this is not what we signed up for. We didn't know that we have
Hmm.
to deal with all of these things when it comes to offline. We had a great launch, influencers came, everything, and now we realize that why D2C is a better route, right?
Yeah.
I think that's another interesting challenge where um, a lot of attention can go to solve that problem, because I think having a hybrid, like having multiple touch points, is a great thing for a brand. But depending on what the brand sells, right? If your lens card, you're kind of debating internally, should I do eye test at home or should I do eye test in store? So
Yeah.
I think that's where like an agency and more creators can kind of come in and find new age solutions that help these brands kind of address it.
Do you feel that the creator is going to be the center of where the agency space is going to be? Because I'm just picking that up from what you just said.
I love that. I love that. So when we say that we're an agency built by creators for creators,
Mhm.
we there are two kinds of creators in my head, right? If you're a videographer, you're a designer, you're a copywriter, you're a creator.
Mm.
You are.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what our team is kind of built comprised of. But we also have a lot of unconventional creators that are on our team. I would say TikTokers, Instagrammers, YouTubers. And
Mm.
I think there's this constant internal battle in my mind. Should we hire more traditional creators or
Mhm.
unconventional creators?
Yeah.
Because someone who makes reels
Yeah.
can make better reels that do get better traction than a copywriter, an anchor, and a videographer put together.
I agree.
Right? It's just crazy. We spend a week on a reel and it gets 2,000 views. um s- a really young Instagram creator walks in and makes a reel in 7 seconds and it gets 1 million views.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different amounts of value being delivered, but ultimately reach does have to be factored in, right? So I think some of the best agencies that that are born in the last few years, they have this ability where they've not loaded up on conventional creators,
Yeah.
and they have the ability to build a sizable conventional creator base, but then scale with unconventional creators. And I think that if that balance is struck right, those are going to be the next big agencies.
I agree entirely because, and this is something which, as I've learned the creator side, and weirdly enough, like when I look at my own personal journey, right? Start off as a person behind the camera, because so production was anyway like muscle memory. But as you learn how creators not just create content, but look at data, understand the audience, tap into that, go with it. That is in many ways what agencies need to emulate. And I feel the layer on top is just the strategy part, because you to understand long-term brand strategy, understand why color science is important, understanding why just brand voice is important. Some of those pieces you need to add that layer on top. But the chain of actually creating stuff, there is no better, I would say, way to create today than for a creator to create that. And or rather use the methodology, understand how that works. And I feel a lot good part is that there's an entire generation who were born with that phone in their hands to create. So even if
Yes.
they do end up in an agency, they are, I would say, naturally creators,
Yes.
to kind of put stuff out there. So I totally agree, because I feel that's what a lot of agencies and even brands kind of miss. They think it's two separate parts of the whole equation, but they're actually like one and one whole.
No, and literally, as much as it's an internal struggle for me, saying which direction do we, where do we hire, right? We have
Mm.
limited resources, but I see this as a healthy debate play out in with my team. We
Yeah.
just for the last 6 months, we've saved the first almost 12 to 14 months as an agency.
Mm.
We were an agency on iPhone, right? We didn't have a DSLR. So
Yeah.
we've been saving up, and like about a month, 2 months ago, we finally got the Sony Alpha A7 IV.
I
And
just got mine. And this is literally
right,
the first time using it.
right, oh my god, okay, that's so exciting. Something to be aware of, it has a heating issue. So you have
Yeah.
to research it, and you have to kind of work on it.
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it gives us a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
But um I mean, for me, it was obviously, these are learnings, right? We're figuring it out. But I thought the best investment I could make in my team is to give them the right tools and the right gear, whether
Exactly.
it's online subscriptions or it's hardware. And every month, at the end of the month, we kind of look at all our content and have a social media report and just a fun internal meeting saying which ideas worked, which didn't, based on Instagram, YouTube, and stuff.
Mm.
And I was shocked. I was like, every piece of content that has worked was shot on phone, and every
Yeah.
piece shot on the DSLR has not done that well from a reach and engagement perspective, not a quality, right?
Yeah.
um a- it was eye opening to me, because I see the team debating, saying, I'll just shoot this one on my phone, it'll do better. And I'm
Yeah.
just thinking to myself, What is going on here?"
Why
Right?
did you spend all that money?
Yeah.
No, so I have my own thought on that, right? Because like any Instagram reels, etc. I'm creating, I shoot on my phone, even though I have whatever camera I have with me. Because I feel at some point when you are consuming content, a large part of the content has been created on the phone. So when
Yes.
something seems overproduced, and I feel that's the one trap you can fall into very easily. It's a major trap agencies fall into, is that you overproduce it. And when you overproduce it, it starts to look like an ad. Doesn't really look like, or looks like television, looks like a highly produced piece of content. Whereas if it's raw,
Yes.
well, people are like, one second, this looks like a normal video. Let me just watch it.
Yeah.
But there's a parallel to that, which is that, let's say we're doing a podcast, and we're doing something which actually can use that extra level of
Yes.
like this clarity. There,
Yes.
this makes a lot more sense. So I kind of get that phone part, and I feel like phone cameras are great. Let's be honest. They're like, you technically, and oftentimes might not even need to get a DSLR anymore.
I think by the time this podcast comes out, this conversation could mean something completely different, right? With the next iPhone coming out.
Yeah, and they already have that new piece where you can turn an iPhone into a webcam.
Yes.
And like, I had half a mind saying, why am I buying this DSLR again? But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, but it makes sense to kind of get it, to just kind of rig it up. And
Yeah, no, I
that's
think
the difference in thought process, I guess.
Yeah, I think these are the new age kind of decisions that we have to make, right? When we're in this space. And we just have to be open to the fact that we're not going to make all of them right, but we have to be reactive. So
Yeah.
we quickly said, okay, cool, you guys do your reels on your on the phone as much as you want, and we'll use the DSLR for client work, for ad shoots,
Mm.
for YouTube, where it makes more sense. And we quickly kind of pivoted that into a different part of what we're doing. So ultimately it's still useful, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's all just one big learning learning experience, right?
In doing these multiple pieces that you do, and you briefly spoke about it before the break, what have you learned about yourself as not just an individual but as an entrepreneur? That what are your own, like, what have been your learnings, not just in terms of how you should function, but actually how you function as well?
Yeah, I think very, very directly, I've learned that I like to build things, and I'm not necessarily the best operator in any of the businesses that I'm involved in, right? And I've said this many times, but I've understood it deeper and deeper every year that I've
Mm.
been in business, that I really am not a good operator, right?
Yeah.
But I still want operational excellence in everything we do, because you can build a brand, you can market, but once someone comes and has an actual experience with your brand, whether it's offline or online, and that experience is subpar, you're never getting them back, right?
Mm.
So my main focus is to have excellent operators in everything that we do, and then me kind of focus on the creative part of it, focus
Mm.
on innovating, disrupting very healthy businesses, just because I don't want to be last to kind of evolve.
Yeah.
It's almost like an insurance approach, right? Let's disrupt ourselves so that we don't get disrupted.
Yeah.
And that has resulted in me kind of battling it out with these great operators, which are like, everything is good, just let it be for another year. And
Mm.
I'm coming in there and saying like, yeah, operate but also innovate, right?
Yeah.
So that has been the space, that has been my journey in that kind of space.
And how has that also kind of changed the kind of, like you mentioned, operational excellence, like that and stuff like that? What do you look for when you're hiring um, people, and especially to kind of counterbalance that? I'm guessing the operational part is there, but are the other aspects just from a hiring perspective?
Yeah, I think it's just the one word that is the most important word is in any of our, at least the things we do, this person needs to very deeply care.
Hmm.
That can't be taught.
So true.
That's literally it, right? Most of the people we celebrated, the person leading our digital strategy just celebrated 5 years yesterday. The person leading our real estate spaces business is going to be completing 6 years soon. And the roles they came in at were so fundamentally different from what they're doing today. They weren't even operational, but the
Hmm.
the one thing is they cared about me, my ideas, my vision, what we're doing, our community. And there's been so much learning and so many mistakes, but that desire to want to solve those problems and figure it
Hmm.
out has what has kind of kept us afloat.
Yeah. Towards the later part of every episode, I ask my guests a set of questions. Right, those have nothing to do with what we've spoken about so far, but it's got just like to kind of tap into the other side of you. Um, Beyond all these things that you do, and you do a lot of things like you discuss on the show, um, what else kind of excites you and rather becomes a part, or rather has to be a part of your day, beyond, if you can call it work, what you do?
Yeah, I think for me recently, this answer has changed, right? But for me recently, um, the thing that I look forward to the most is we have this incredible kind of team here.
Mm.
And this is almost not work related, but it's something that gives me a lot of joy and like satisfaction. I love like learning about what's happening on internet culture,
Mm.
right? Some of it doesn't directly even affect what we do.
Yeah.
But I love learning about it. I usually do this every night before going to bed. Like, I'm a
Yes.
night owl. I'll stay up, I'll watch podcasts, I'll like watch stuff, read stuff, and then coming in the next day and kind of like almost like presenting to my team, these are my learnings from last night, and
Yeah.
saying, figure out whether it applies to you, it doesn't apply to you, whether it's work or just makes you a smarter person. Doing that, I've realized that I just really enjoy like learning every day and then passing that on to someone else.
Mm.
And I've considered, how do I do this? Could I do a podcast? Could I do a newsletter? but
Mm.
but the thing that truly makes me happy is to do it in person with just 20 people.
Mm. That's so true, right? Because oftentimes kind of sitting down 20 people, it's not just one sided, it's also like back and forth. It's an actual
Yeah,
communication, and everybody feeds each other with things. So I think that's, I agree with you. That gives the most amount of value on like a broader basis than anything else.
I think
Um,
more than anything, it's just so personally satisfying, right?
so true. So true. Anything you've read, watched, or listened to recently that you'd recommend?
um I started watching a lot of your podcasts over the last 2 weeks. I've been having a
Nice.
lot of fun. I've been learning a lot of stuff. um I think I'm always a huge fan of Gary Vee.
Mm.
um Watching his content. But
Also,
in
how
the
he's
last,
evolved, right?
yeah, the way he's evolved, right? It's amazing because he's not creating content, he's
Yeah.
living his life. Content is a
Yeah.
byproduct. And I
Exactly.
think as entrepreneurs, as creators, we have so much to learn from that philosophy of content creation, right?
Yeah.
um yeah, and I think specifically the last month I've been reading a lot about internet culture and meme marketing, because that's something that we're about to venture into.
Mm.
I just think it's so fascinating from so many different angles, and I'm excited to kind of keep learning about it both personally and as a company, because I think it is going to play an important role in the future of how brands are built.
You just mentioned meme marketing, right? So what interested you to kind of tap into that area?
Um, so remember I told you the hub, the
Mm,
number one thing that kind of it attracts is people with ideas saying that, hey, we want to join your team.
mm,
We met our director of PR because she walked into the hub one day and
yeah.
said, I've been watching your content for the last 2 years and I've never met you, but
Mm.
I'm going to come in, I'm going to take over this very whiteboard that's behind me, and I'm going to tell you top to bottom. She filled it out and said, this is why you need to have PR at the hub, and I'm the person to do it. We
Mm,
shook her hands, and 2 months later, she started off. So she's almost going to be here for a year. The
yeah.
same thing happened with meme marketing. An 18-year-old kid just walked in here and said,
Mm,
he actually made a Notion proposal for us.
mm,
And we loved the design of the Notion proposal. And we said, okay, cool, you're in. You're coming in as an intern. We'll take that risk, put it together, make a deck, pitch it to our current clients as an upsell. And if
mm,
even one of them take it, you can lead this vertical. So that's how we got into meme marketing. And we've been doing a lot of memes on the Hub's page, on our clients' pages. And
mm,
it's just working, right? Like if you have an idea, try it, and if it works, build a business around it. But I
yeah.
think over strategizing, over planning, and like launching in 2 months, 3 months, it's just not something that we have done or that's worked for us.
What can you put together in an instant?
What can I put together in an instant?
Yeah.
A Notion page. I'm in
I'm
love with Notion.
I am fully going to admit it. I have tried to get my head around Notion, but I feel I have a mental block of a 40-year-old who is refusing to learn Notion. I will eventually get over that hurdle because it has been on my like I need to learn this
it,
list.
it's truly an amazing tool. You can just shift your entire personal life and your company. It's like an operating system, a very user friendly, easy on the eyes operating system for your
Yeah,
work to keep things
yeah,
organized.
yeah. No, I love the way whenever someone sends me a Notion piece, I love it, but I've just not been able to create one myself. Point to note that's something I need to get back onto. And what's generally the last question I ask everyone is a play off the name of the show itself, which we've been trying to evolve over time. Um, what do you think is going to keep the creative space alive going ahead, especially in the way in which you're kind of bringing the hybrid of physical and digital together?
Yeah, I think just giving it room to take its natural course, right? That is all the creator space needs. It doesn't need policies and interventions and us trying to think that we know what's best for it. It's everyone just agreeing, allow it to be on its journey, allow it to have space to evolve, let it take time, let it make a mess, let it fix that mess, and just see the beauty in that evolution. Because it's going to create a lot of opportunities that a lot of other creators will immediately be solving, and
Hmm.
that is that innovation chain that just keeps it going. So at least that's just the way I look at it.
Thanks so much for doing this, Azan. It's been I've loved to kind of tap into your mind, and I know that there's a bunch more things you can talk about. But I want to leave something to kind of get you back on the show at some point in time. We can go deeper into these conversations and take them further. But thank you so much for coming on Advertising is Dead, where it's all business.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you for being a friend of the Hub and for collaborating with us, for having me on. We've ordered 10 copies of your book, and we're going to
Thank you
be
so
doing a
much.
giveaway in our community soon. I'm just super excited we got to talk, and I'm looking forward to potentially doing more things with you down the line.
For sure. I'm popping by Bangalore soon, so hopefully we'll, and I
Yes,
definitely will pop, and not
we
hopefully.
have to have you over here for a coffee when you're in
Done.
town.
Done. I'll do that for sure.
Thank you, Varun.
Thanks.